Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is pouring milk into their coffee without a second thought. It looks like the simplest thing a body can do. But here's what almost nobody realizes. For most humans who have ever lived, that same glass of milk would have caused cramping, bloating, and a very unpleasant afternoon. You are, in a strict biological sense, one of the strange ones. Somewhere between 10,000 years ago and now, something happened to human bodies that shouldn't have been possible. An organ system that was supposed to shut down in childhood stayed switched on in millions of people. And the stranger part is this. Humans started drinking milk long before their bodies were ready for it. So how did an entire species build its diet around a food most adults couldn't properly digest? To understand that, we have to go back to a time with no farms, no herds, and no one who had ever imagined drinking the milk of another animal on purpose. Every mammal works the same way at birth. A newborn survives on milk because its body produces an enzyme called lactase, which breaks down the sugar in milk so it can be absorbed. Once that infant grows old enough to chew roots, meat and fruit, something quietly happens inside its gut. The gene controlling lactase gets switched down. The body stops expecting milk because in the wild, it never gets any more. This wasn't a flaw. It was efficient design. Why keep manufacturing an enzyme your body will never need again? For early human hunter-gatherers, this system worked perfectly for one simple reason. There was no milk to drink in the first place. You cannot walk up to a wild aurochs, the enormous short-tempered ancestor of modern cattle, and ask it to stand still while you milk it. Kibo watches one move through the tall grass from a safe distance, keeping very still. Some animals, clearly, are only worth admiring from far away. Then, roughly 10,000 years ago, something shifted. Communities across parts of the Middle East began doing something no human ancestor had ever done at this scale. They started keeping animals alive on purpose, not just hunting them, but managing them, breeding them, following them from pasture to pasture. Once you keep a female animal alive after she gives birth, you notice something valuable. A slaughtered animal feeds you once. A living one can feed you again, and again, and again. Milk became something no ancient human diet had ever truly had access to before, a renewable food source. There was just one enormous problem. Almost none of the adults drinking it could digest it properly. Kibo watches an elder pour fresh milk into a carved wooden bowl by the firelight, his expression somewhere between curiosity and suspicion. Something about this doesn't feel right yet, and it isn't. Archaeologists have found proof of this mismatch preserved somewhere you wouldn't expect. Broken pottery. Fat residue from milk has been detected inside ceramic shards. From the Near East, dating back roughly 9,000 years, microscopic traces sealed inside clay, waiting 9 millennia to be found. But here's where the story takes its first real turn. If early humans couldn't properly digest fresh milk, how did dairy farming survive as a strategy at all? The answer wasn't hiding in their bodies, it was in their hands. Early herders began noticing something that had nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with observation. Milk left to sit didn't stay the same. It soured, it thickened, it separated. And when they experimented with that transformation on purpose, something remarkable happened. Fermented milk and cheese contained far less of the sugar that was causing the problem in the first place. Fermentation lets microbes consume much of that sugar before a human ever does. Cheesemaking goes further still, draining away the liquid whey where most of the lactose was dissolved, leaving behind curds that could be eaten with barely any of the sugar that once caused all the trouble. Ancient humans didn't wait to evolve the ability to drink milk. They engineered around the problem, using microbes as an invisible workforce, thousands of years before anyone knew bacteria existed. Kibo tilts his head. watching curds slowly form in a bowl, uncertain exactly what he's witnessing. Something changing shape, texture and smell right in front of him. This should have been the end of the story. Culture solved the problem. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Ancient DNA has revealed something almost nobody expected. In early European farming communities, researchers found dairy fat baked into cooking pots for thousands of years, while the genetic mutation that lets adults comfortably digest fresh milk was almost completely absent from the population. Read that again. People were farming milk, storing milk, and eating dairy products for millennia, long before their bodies evolved the ability to properly process it. The culture came first. The biology came later. This flips the story most people assume. Many imagine evolution came first, that humans evolved the ability to drink milk, and only then built a dairy culture around it. The truth runs the opposite direction. Humans built the dairy economy while still biologically unprepared for it, and that decision reshaped which genes turned out to matter. So then the real question becomes, if fermentation and cheese already solved the digestion problem, why would evolution bother rewriting human genetics at all? The newest research points somewhere darker than a simple nutrition story: crisis. Researchers are still debating exactly how large the advantage was, but the direction of the evidence is fairly consistent. When harvests failed and when disease tore through crowded farming villages, milk became one of the last reliable calorie sources left standing. A herd of goats can survive conditions that wipe out an entire field of grain. For someone already weakened by hunger or illness, the ability to digest fresh milk without losing fluids to diarrhea wasn't a minor convenience. It could be the difference between recovering and not recovering at all. Generation after generation, in populations facing repeated famine and disease, the people who happened to carry a rare mutation keeping lactase switched on into adulthood had a quiet advantage. Not dramatic, not overnight, but enough, repeated across enough emergencies to spread that mutation from rare to common. Kibo watches a mother goat nurse her kid, something clicking into place behind his eyes, an idea forming that he doesn't yet have the words for. In many Europeans today, that switch sits in a control region near a gene called MCM6, quietly instructing a neighbouring gene to keep producing lactase long after childhood should have shut it down. The body doesn't grow a new organ. It simply forgets to cancel an old subscription. And here's the twist almost nobody expects. This mutation didn't just happen once. In parts of Africa and the Middle East, entirely different populations evolved their own separate genetic solutions to the exact same problem. Different mutations arriving at the same outcome, completely independently of one another. Evolution finding the same answer twice from opposite ends of the map. Meanwhile, across the Mongolian steppe, an entire culture built thousands of years of herding and survival around dairy, without ever evolving that mutation at all. To this day, many Mongolians consume dairy constantly, while lacking the genetic trait common across northern Europe. Their solution stayed exactly where it started, in the recipe, not the DNA. Two completely different survival strategies. One rewrote the genome, the other never needed to. Kibo sits at the mouth of the cave as the sun rises, watching smoke curl from the dying fire. Something like understanding settles over him, quiet and a little heavier than before. So the next time you pour milk into your coffee without a second thought, understand what that ordinary motion is actually built on top of. 10,000 years of trial and error, failed experiments, fermentation discovered by accident, families surviving famine on the milk of a dying herd, genes rewritten, not because life was easy, but because it wasn't. You're not just drinking milk. You're drinking the end result of one of the strangest gambles a human body ever made, and won.